What can I write off for my self-employed business? What is a write-off? How do I get write-offs in TurboTax? How do I enter my business in TurboTax? Amanda here from the Business Finance Coach on YouTube, where I'm helping you master your finances and grow your self-employed work. Welcome to my tax series where I'm showing you how to use different DIY tax softwares and using them to clarify the tax rules. Be sure to start at video 1 if you want to see how I got here. If you are in TurboTax Self-Employed, you will not have a business tab. You'll have a federal tab over here and then an income tab here, and then you'll go to self-employed business income and expenses. Other than that, it's all the same. It looks slightly different, but it is the same. All right, so I'm going to click Edit next to the business. Then we'll scroll down. So what can you write off? What are our write-offs? We're in our business. This is where we enter everything about our business. Now, the reason I created the business spreadsheet template, which I give away for free, is because this spreadsheet helps you catch up all of your numbers, everything you did during the year, every income, every expense for every month. So this spreadsheet helps you catch up all of your income and expenses, because all of those expenses, anything you spend money on from any account, cash, anywhere, all of it is a write-off come tax time. And it's really important for you to actually know your numbers. So in this section, I'm going to look at business expenses. Now, I have a separate video going over the vehicle expense. This is how you write off driving. You don't keep track of just gas for a trip, right? There's special rules for anything that includes personal benefit as well as your business. There's special rules, and at the end of the day, it's pretty advantageous. Like, it's not worth forming a business to try and save taxes. Typically, there's more benefits to being self-employed than people realize, and in my videos, you'll start to understand that as well. So the home office is another one of those. It's space in your home that you get to write off. Now, because those two have so many rules and details, I have separate videos for those. However, in this video, we'll be going through everything else, other business expenses. And basically, the IRS has these very specific categories, and I know it can be overwhelming for people to know where to put everything. That is something that my spreadsheet helps you do, and that spreadsheet's free, by the way. I just give it away because I don't think that this stuff should be overwhelming for you. I think that it should be an empowering time to look at your money, and you might have been forced into being self-employed, but now that you're there, you might as well make more money and make a job that makes you ecstatic and change your industry and change the world. So I'm all about helping that. Now, as far as these categories, you may only use a few of these categories, and that's actually really normal. These categories aren't specific to any industry, and so what my spreadsheet does is it totals up all of your expense categories, which are just whatever you call your expenses, and then on the last page, there's an option to select which of these IRS Schedule C categories apply to each type of your expense. And then my spreadsheet gives you your totals for all of these sections. So that's something that's convenient about that spreadsheet. Now, if you don't have too much going on, it might be pretty straightforward and easy. You might be able to just take your totals from the income statement and enter them on in here. One thing I will mention, the purpose of why you spend the money on something is what determines how you choose the category. And advertising. So advertising is going to include a lot of things. Anything you spend to get customers. There's no account for marketing or online expenses, that type of stuff. So all of that will go in advertising. So I tend to have quite a few things in advertising, my website, everything like that. Business travel. If you are traveling for a business purpose away from your tax home. Your tax home is where you live and work. Once you're traveling away from that, you can deduct all your expenses. If you have personal days, you need to not deduct any expenses for those days. And what I recommend using a piece of paper for your business trips and documenting the dates, how you traveled, and keeping track of all your expenses, and then totaling up that trip. And you could literally enter trip 1, trip 2, or just your individual totals. However you want to do it is fine. You don't have to break these out. This goes for all of these expenses. You don't have to break it out in categories. You can just put one total amount. It's up to you. However, the one thing to realize with business travel is that I know that a lot of people online might travel all the time. You don't want to say, I travel all the time so I can write off all my expenses. Be careful with that one, because if you are considered transient, which means you have no tax home, you actually don't get to write anything off. Now, the one other cool thing about business travel is you get to deduct all of your food, but you don't enter it here. And this is the only time you get to deduct food, like regular food. Otherwise, I'll skip down here to meals and entertainment. Otherwise, for meals, they only qualify to be written off when they're entertainment. When you're entertaining a client, a potential worker, or potential client or current client, those are meals as entertainment if there's entertainment involved. And the one thing with meals and entertainment is you want to document it. So you want to write on your receipt, who were you with? What was the business nature of the conversation? You want to be a little bit more detailed than you have to be in other documentation. And then this 100% limit, that is for meals while traveling. When you're traveling for business on 100% business days, if you did anything business related, that's 100% day, you can deduct all of your food. And there are per diem amounts at the gsa.gov website. They're based on location where you travel. If you don't want to keep records about everything you spent money on for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you can take the per diem amount. Continue. Okay, commissions. Self-explanatory. Any commission, you may have had to include it in your income because of a 1099. You deduct it here. Communication, a second phone line, specific calls that cost you money. You cannot deduct your personal phone line, even if you use it for business. There has to be specific additional charges, or you have to pay for another line. Subcontractors expense. I'm sure a lot of you guys are subcontractors. If you hire people on Upwork, Fiverr, anywhere like that, you deduct it here. Insurance payments. Now, this is a cool change that TurboTax has made. You can actually deduct your health insurance premiums here for you, your spouse, your family. They're 100% deductible. They're not deductible on Schedule C, so don't look for them there. They're on page 1 of Form 1040. There's quite a few self-employed deductions that are on page 1, because remember, your business for taxes isn't separate from your personal tax. Now, all types of insurance are deductible, even long-term care insurance, but that's the same thing as health insurance premiums. It's on page 1 of your personal form. And then any type of other insurance is deductible for business, of course. All of these, it's based on that you're doing it for business. The next one is interest payments, credit card, if it was for business and you bought business things, loans, any interest payment for business. Legal and professional fees, that's fairly self-explanatory. Any lawyers, CPAs, any associations. I'm in an association for my EA license, and I recommend looking at whatever association you have for your industry. And it's a great way to stay up on your industry and feel like a legitimate business, know what's going on, and those sorts of things. And if you're asking any professional for advice, you can see that listed here, you can deduct that. A coach like myself, that would be deductible here as well. I covered meals and entertainment, office expenses, just like it sounds, anything for your office. Rental expenses, if you rent anything, equipment, cars, whatever. Renting a car would typically be deducted under travel because you'd be traveling, but anything you rent, Any location you rent as well that's specifically for business is 100% deductible. Unlike your personal home, the home office goes in that other location. We have repairs and maintenance, which won't apply to most self-employed people unless I maybe fixed my computer screen and my computer is 100% for business. I would deduct that repair. Supplies. Now, supplies is a good one for a lot of things. Most people will always have supplies. Yes, there's the general things like pens, papers, and those sorts of things, but also any expenses specifically for your industry. You won't see a category for your industry because these are general categories. So you want to use that supplies category for your industry type expenses where you don't see anywhere else to put them. Typically, I recommend putting them under supplies. Taxes and licenses, if you hire people, this is where you put your taxes. If you pay a state excise tax or sales tax or use tax, they're sometimes called, or a locality tax, those you can deduct here, as well as licenses. If you have an LLC, the costs of that. I have an EA license through the IRS. It's not technically called a license, but I can represent taxpayers. I can file all types of business returns, and each year I pay a fee, as well as every 3 years renew my license, and that I would deduct here. Utilities. If you have a home office, utilities don't go here. This most likely won't go here unless you are renting or you own a building specifically for your business only. Then you deduct the mortgage interest here, you deduct the utilities, and you'll deduct property taxes and those sorts of things here as well. Other miscellaneous expenses, you can enter other things here, but I would just use this sparingly. So don't enter amounts here because you're like, I don't fit in any of the categories, and enter 100% of your expenses here. That could be a trigger because it's weird. Miscellaneous expense should be a small amount of expense. So make sure this isn't more than 5 to 10% of your total expenses. Don't list everything here. Choose a category, put it there. And as you see here, note, if you've entered a general business expense in the wrong category, it will not affect your taxes. Just be sure you don't enter the same expense twice. That's what's wrong. So our taxes are based on if you do something wrong, there's a fine or penalty. And it's based on the amount by which you lied or made a mistake. So as long as there's no difference in the amount, there's no issue. You don't need to worry. So don't worry too much about your expenses. Choose a category and put it in there. Be sure to check out my other videos where I'll be going through cost of goods sold, the vehicle expense, office expense, assets, and other situations. I'd love to hear questions about your business write-offs in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate it if you hit the like button, and be sure to subscribe to learn more about taxes and getting your finances organized and growing your self-employed business. And if you need to get your 2017 accounting records caught up for this year's taxes, be sure to download my business spreadsheet template for free and save yourself a copy of the Google spreadsheet.